Part 1. The shocking bill arrives. The story begins with James Miller, a 42-year-old father of two from Texas. James was driving home late at night when another car ran a red light and smashed into his SUV. His vehicle spun out of control and slammed into a guardrail. Bystanders quickly called 911, and within minutes, an ambulance arrived. Paramedics strapped James onto a stretcher, checked his vitals, and rushed him to the nearest trauma center. At that moment, James wasn't worried about costs. He was semi-conscious, in pain, and scared for his life. For most Americans, that's the reality. In an emergency, you don't shop around for the cheapest ambulance, you simply hope to survive. But weeks later, when James was recovering at home, the bill arrived. And that's when the nightmare began all over again. The total charge for his ambulance ride? $120,856. That's more than the average annual salary in the United States. Breaking down the bill, James saw charges that seemed unbelievable. Mileage fee, $1,500 for 18 miles of transport. Advanced life support package, $25,000, even though James was never placed on life support. Medical supplies, $8,700 for basic bandages, IV fluid, and oxygen. Trauma activation fee, $15,000, just for the hospital preparing to receive him. And the most shocking? Air transport surcharge, $70,000, even though James was taken by ground ambulance, not a helicopter. Confused and angry, James called the billing department. Their response? It's standard procedure. The charges are correct. This is the point where thousands of Americans feel trapped. Because when you're unconscious or injured, you don't get to negotiate prices, choose a provider, or reject unnecessary services. But later, the bill can destroy your finances. James's story is not an isolated case. In fact, a government report found that the median cost of an ambulance ride in the U.S. is 10 times higher than in most developed countries. And when private ambulance companies get involved, bills often skyrocket. But how did we get here? Why are ambulances, something so basic and life-saving, being priced like luxury cars?
James's $120,000 bill wasn't a random mistake. It was the result of a system that almost seems designed to trap patients. To understand how, we need to look at how ambulances actually work in the U.S. Unlike police and fire departments, many ambulance services are not run by the government. Instead, they're outsourced to private companies, corporations whose main priority is profit, not public service. And here's the scary part. In many cities, these companies hold exclusive contracts. That means if you call 911, you don't get to choose which ambulance comes. One company has the monopoly, and whatever price they set, you're stuck with it. In James's case, the ambulance provider was a private company with one of the highest charge rates in the country. They billed $8,000 just for having two paramedics step inside the vehicle. Then they added mileage, equipment, and bizarre fees that no one had agreed to. But what about insurance? Doesn't that cover emergencies? You'd think so, but here's the catch. Many ambulance providers are out of network. This means your insurance company hasn't made a deal with them. So instead of paying a negotiated lower rate, the provider can charge the full sticker price, and you, the patient, are responsible for the difference. This is called balance billing, and it's one of the leading causes of medical debt in America. In fact, a federal study found that 71% of ambulance rides result in an out-of-network bill. That means nearly 3 out of 4 people who take an ambulance could face crushing medical debt even if they have insurance. And here's another shocking fact. The government estimates that over half of all ambulance services in the U.S. are run for profit. Unlike a fire truck or police car that shows up for free, ambulances have become a business opportunity. That business model creates perverse incentives. Some companies bill for advanced life support when a patient only received basic care. Others charge for air ambulance services even if no helicopter was used, like in James's case. And once the bill is in your mailbox, fighting it is like fighting a ghost. The company has the legal right to send debt collectors after you, ruin your credit score, and in some states, even sue you for non-payment. James tried to appeal his bill, but the process was a nightmare. Each phone call led to another department, another supervisor, another excuse. Meanwhile, the balance was gaining late fees and collection threats. And here's the cruelest twist. Most Americans don't even realize ambulance costs are unregulated until it's too late. Unlike hospital care or prescription drugs, ambulance billing is often set at the county or provider level with no nationwide price cap. That's why one person's 5-mile ambulance ride can cost $500 in one city and $15,000 in another. This chaos has led to heartbreaking stories. A mother in California was billed $7,000 for an ambulance that simply drove her child 3 blocks. A college student in New York was charged $18,000 after fainting in class and being taken to a nearby hospital. And one family in Florida faced a $48,000 bill for a short helicopter ride, despite the fact that their child had already died on arrival. Each case shows the same pattern. In emergencies, patients have no choice, and providers exploit that fact to charge astronomical amounts. So when James received his $120,000 ambulance bill, he wasn't alone. He had become part of a larger hidden epidemic, one that bankrupts tens of thousands of families each year. But the real question is, who's profiting from all this? And why isn't the government stepping in to protect people?
James's story feels shocking, but when you dig deeper, it becomes clear. Someone is profiting massively from this broken system. Let's start with insurance companies. On the surface, they look like the victim, forced to pay giant claims. But here's the truth. Many insurers actually benefit from high medical bills. Why? Because their profits are tied to a rule called the medical loss ratio. By law, insurance companies must spend at least 80% of premiums on patient care. That sounds good, right? But here's the catch. The higher the medical bills, the higher they can raise premiums. So when ambulance providers charge $10,000 or $100,000, insurance companies can justify increasing what they charge millions of customers next year. In other words, rising ambulance bills give them cover to raise premiums for everyone. Now let's talk about the providers themselves. A shocking number of ambulance companies are owned not by local communities, but by private equity firms. Private equity specializes in buying businesses, cutting costs, and squeezing out profits. When they take over ambulance services, their goal isn't better care, it's maximum revenue. And the results are predictable. Prices skyrocket, patients are billed for unnecessary advanced services, and aggressive debt collection becomes the norm. One study found that in just 5 years, ambulance bills rose over 60% in areas where private equity had taken control. But perhaps the most powerful players in this system are the lobbyists. Ambulance companies and private equity owners spend millions every year lobbying Congress to keep rules in their favor. For example, when lawmakers tried to ban surprise ambulance billing, the practice that trapped James with a $120,000 bill, the ambulance lobby fought back, and they won. That's why even after the 2022 No Surprises Act protected patients from many outrageous medical bills, ambulances were specifically excluded. Think about that. Your insurance now has to protect you from surprise ER charges, but not from ambulance costs. And that was no accident. It was the result of political pressure. So while patients like James are left bankrupt, the system keeps turning. Insurance companies use high costs to justify premium hikes. Private equity firms rake in profits from billing and debt collection, and lobbyists make sure laws don't change. And you, the patient, are the one stuck with the bill. It's a vicious cycle, one that almost feels designed to keep ordinary people trapped in medical debt. But here's the part that makes people truly angry. Almost none of the money actually goes to the paramedics who saved lives. The average paramedic salary in the U.S. is just $45,000 a year. Many work long shifts under high stress with little pay. Yet the companies that bill patients $100,000 often pay their frontline workers barely enough to get by. So, where does the money go? Straight to corporate headquarters, shareholders, and debt collectors. James, like millions of Americans, realized the hard way that calling 911 isn't just a cry for help, it's also the start of a financial nightmare.
James's nightmare isn't unique. Across the US, millions of families have lived the same story, sometimes with even worse consequences. Take Sarah, a 27-year-old teacher from Texas. She fainted at work, and her colleagues panicked, calling 911. She was in the hospital for less than 3 hours. Her ambulance ride? $9,800. Her insurance refused to cover it because the ambulance company was out of network. Sarah spent over a year fighting collection agencies, all for a ride she never asked for in a moment when she couldn't even speak for herself. Or consider David and Marlene, an elderly couple in Ohio. David had chest pains one night, so Marlene dialed 911. The ride saved his life, but the bill nearly ruined their retirement. $38,000 for less than 20 miles. Marlene told reporters, "We did everything right. We worked, we saved, but one ambulance ride, and it felt like we lost everything." These stories reveal a cruel truth. In the US, you can be punished financially for simply trying to survive. And the numbers back it up. According to a 2023 report, 71% of ambulance rides in the US lead to out-of-network charges. The average ground ambulance bill is around $1,200, but many climbed far higher, into tens of thousands. For air ambulances, the average charge is now $36,000. And in extreme cases, bills above $500,000 have been documented. $500,000 for a ride you didn't choose on the worst day of your life. Now let's talk about what the government has done and hasn't done. In 2022, Congress passed the No Surprises Act, which was supposed to protect Americans from unexpected medical bills. And for many hospital and ER services, it worked. But remember, ambulances were deliberately left out. Why? Because the ambulance lobby fought harder than patients could. They argued that regulating prices would hurt response times and limit coverage. But here's the irony. Even in countries with strict ambulance regulations, like Canada, the UK, or Australia, response times are often faster and costs are a fraction of US prices. The truth is, leaving ambulances unregulated wasn't about protecting patients. It was about protecting profits. Meanwhile, bills keep piling up, and the consequences are devastating. Families declare bankruptcy, retirements are drained, young people start their adult lives already in debt. And remember, none of these patients had a choice. Nobody shops for an ambulance like they shop for a taxi. You don't ask for a price comparison when you're bleeding or unconscious. You just hope someone helps you. That's what makes this issue so outrageous. Ambulances are supposed to represent safety, rescue, and trust. But in America, they've become a symbol of financial danger. James once told me, "If I'd known the cost, I might have hesitated before calling." And that thought terrifies me, because next time, hesitation could mean death. And that's the most dangerous outcome of all, a healthcare system so broken that people are afraid to call 911 in an emergency. This isn't just about bills. It's about life and death. And yet, the cycle continues. Ambulance companies keep billing, insurers keep raising premiums, and lobbyists keep blocking reforms. And ordinary Americans are left trapped in a game they can't win.
Country in the world. Calling an ambulance, a literal lifeline, has become a gamble with financial ruin. No one should have to choose between survival and bankruptcy. But here's the reality. Unless something changes, these stories will keep repeating. Ambulance companies will keep charging, insurance companies will keep denying, lobbyists will keep fighting, and families will keep paying. Unless people start paying attention. The first step is awareness. Because once you know how this system works, you can protect yourself, your family, and maybe, just maybe, push for change. So if this story shocked you, share it, talk about it, because silence only protects the people profiting from your pain. And before you click away, ask yourself, what would you do if this happened to your family tomorrow? Would you be ready for a $10,000, $50,000, or even a $120,000 bill just for calling 911? Most of us aren't, and that's why this matters. This channel exists to expose the hidden traps in America's financial and healthcare systems, because you deserve to know the truth before it's too late. So if you want to uncover more shocking stories that corporations and lobbyists don't want you to hear, hit subscribe, tap the bell, and leave a comment below. Do you think ambulances should be free, or at least affordable? Your answer might surprise you, and reading other people's answers might shock you even more. Because at the end of the day, knowledge is power, and the more we spread it, the harder it becomes for the system to keep hiding in the shadows. This was Bill Shock USA. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned, because the next hidden story is even bigger.